The massive space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons and housed the greatest minds in the galaxy. This was the home of the Galactic Council, rulers of 47 different alien species across 3 arms of the galaxy. Inside the main meeting hall, hundreds of different creatures sat around a circular table that stretched for miles. Some breathed water, others floated in energy fields, and many looked nothing like anything a human could imagine. They had ruled space for over 10,000 years, and they were very good at it. Zektar the Wise, a tall blue creature with 4 arms and crystals growing from his head, stood up to address the council. He was the chief scientist who studied new life forms they found in space. Today he had important news. Fellow council members, Zektar began, his voice echoing through the hall. Our scout ships have discovered a new species in Sector 7741. They call themselves humans. A murmur went through the crowd. New species were always interesting, but usually not very important. Most were added to the council peacefully after showing they could follow the rules. Tell us about these humans, said Council Leader Theron, a massive creature that looked like a floating brain with tentacles. Are they advanced? Do they have good technology? Zektar pulled up a holographic display showing a small yellow star with several planets around it. They live around this star they call Sol. They have spread to about 12 star systems, but their technology is very primitive. Their fastest ships take months to travel between their own planets. The council members looked at each other. Most of them had technology that could cross the galaxy in days. 12 star systems was nothing. Some individual council members controlled thousands of systems. How many of them are there? Asked Admiral Corthanis, the military leader of the Hegemony fleet. He was a large reptile-like creature covered in black scales. Only about 15 billion total across all their worlds, Zektar replied. Compare that to our population of over 3 trillion. They are also not united. Instead of one government, they have dozens of separate nations that often fight each other. This caused laughter throughout the hall. The idea of a species fighting itself instead of working together seemed ridiculous to the council. Every council species had learned long ago that cooperation was the key to survival in space. What about their military? Corthanis asked. As the fleet commander, this was his main concern. Very weak, Zektar said confidently. They have about 200 warships total. Most are barely capable of leaving their home system. Their weapons are chemical rockets and simple energy beams, nothing that could threaten even our oldest ships. Corthanis smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. 200 ships? I have more ships in my personal escort fleet. Their behavior is also predictable, Zektar continued. They show the typical patterns of young aggressive species. They fight over resources, compete for territory, and make emotional decisions instead of logical ones. Our psychological profiles suggest they would surrender quickly when faced with superior force. Council Leader Theron floated higher, drawing everyone's attention. This presents us with an opportunity. We have been developing the doctrine of preemptive pacification for several years. Perhaps these humans would make an ideal test case. The doctrine of preemptive pacification was a new idea. Instead of the long and expensive process of diplomatic contact, negotiation, and gradual integration, the Council would simply demonstrate their overwhelming power. The new species would immediately understand that resistance was hopeless and would submit to Council rule without a fight. The benefits are obvious, explained Chief Diplomat Xylon, a creature that looked like a living tree. No lengthy negotiations, no cultural misunderstandings, no slow integration process. We show our strength, they surrender, and they become productive council members immediately. Plus, added Economic Director Valen, it sends a message to any other young species in the area. They will see what happened to the humans and will request to join the council voluntarily. Zektar nodded enthusiastically. The humans are perfect for this. They are weak enough that we risk nothing, but visible enough that other species will notice. Their multiple governments mean that even if some groups want to fight, the others will force them to surrender to protect themselves. The discussion continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Council had made this type of decision thousands of times before. Young species either joined peacefully or were forced to join. It had worked for 10,000 years. Admiral Corthanis was given the task of planning the military action. He assembled his staff and began reviewing the intelligence reports about human military capabilities. This will be the easiest campaign in fleet history, he told his officers. Their entire military could not defeat a single one of our dreadnoughts. We will use minimal force, destroy their main military bases, and wait for their surrender. The fleet assigned to the human operation was considered more than adequate. 200 dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying a planet. 500 heavy cruisers with enough firepower to eliminate human space defenses. 50,000 support ships including troop transports, supply vessels, and mobile bases. Sir, asked Captain Thren, one of Corthanus's most experienced officers, isn't this force a bit large for such a primitive species? Corthanus laughed. Better to use too much force than too little. Besides, we want to make an impression. Other species need to see that council power is absolute. The fleet began moving toward human space. It would take 3 weeks to reach their territory, and the admiral expected the actual fighting to last no more than 3 days. Back on the council station, Sektar was preparing detailed reports about human psychology and behavior. He was confident in his analysis. Humans showed all the signs of a typical young aggressive species. They were territorial, emotional, and prone to fighting among themselves. History showed that such species always collapsed quickly when faced with a truly superior enemy. The key factor, he wrote in his report, is their lack of unity. Human governments compete with each other constantly. When we demonstrate our power, their different factions will blame each other for the disaster. Some will want to fight, others will want to surrender immediately. This internal conflict will paralyze them and make resistance impossible. He also noted that humans seem to have strong attachment to their individual lives and their families. Unlike warrior species that glorify death in battle, humans appear to value survival above honor. They will choose to live under council rule rather than die fighting a hopeless, or what Sektar and the entire council failed to understand was that they were looking at humanity through the lens of their own evolutionary history. Every council species had evolved on worlds where cooperation led to survival and conflict led to extinction. They assumed all intelligent species would follow the same pattern. They could not imagine a species that had spent 200,000 years fighting wars against itself. A species where every individual carried the genetic memory of countless generations who had survived by being more violent, more cunning, and more desperate than their enemies. The council saw humanity's disunity as weakness. They did not realize they were about to face a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of war against enemies who knew all their tricks, spoke their language, and shared their technology. As the council fleet moved toward human space, both sides prepared for what they expected to be a very short war. Only one side was right about that. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the tactical display with growing horror. Red dots representing enemy ships filled the screen like a deadly rash spreading across space. Each dot was larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. "Ma'am," called out Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. "We're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. It's in perfect English." "Put it through," Chen ordered, though she already knew what it would say. The main screen flickered and showed a massive reptilian creature with black scales and glowing red eyes. When it spoke, its voice was calm and confident. "I am Admiral Corthanus of the Galactic Council Fleet. Your species has been selected for integration into Council space. Surrender immediately and your transition to Council rule will be peaceful. You have 1 hour to comply." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Chen looked around at her crew. They were good people, the best Earth had to offer, but they all knew the truth. The human fleet had maybe 200 ships. The alien force had thousands. Options? Chen asked her tactical officer. "None good, ma'am. Our weapons can't penetrate their shields. Their weapons can destroy our ships in one hit. If we fight, we'll all be dead in minutes." Chen nodded slowly. She had known this moment might come someday. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they weren't, and the answer was terrifying. "Open a channel to all human settlements," she ordered. "All frequencies, maximum power." When the channel was open, Chen took a deep breath and began to speak. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. As of this moment, I am formally surrendering all human military forces to the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, all human settlements will lay down arms and prepare for occupation. This is a direct order from the highest military authority." Chen out, she closed the channel and waited. According to every military manual ever written, this was the right decision. The war was hopeless and surrender would save billions of lives. But then the responses started coming in. This is Governor Martinez on Mars. We reject your surrender. Mars will fight. This is Admiral Kim of the Jupiter mining fleet. We don't recognize Earth's authority to surrender for us. Jupiter stands ready for battle. This is President Okafor of the African Federation. We never agreed to let Earth speak for all humans. Africa will choose its own path. Within minutes, every human settlement, every colony, every ship in space was transmitting the same message. They rejected the surrender. Earth could speak for Earth, but not for humanity. Chen stared at the communications board in amazement. In all of human history, the different nations and colonies had never agreed on anything. They fought over resources, trade routes, and political systems constantly. But now, faced with extinction, they had all reached the same conclusion independently. They would rather die as free humans than live as alien slaves. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading expert on alien life, was in her laboratory when the war began. She had spent her entire career preparing for first contact, hoping it would be peaceful. Instead, she was watching humanity's first day in a larger universe turn into possibly their last day as a free species. But as she listened to the messages coming in from across human space, she realized something extraordinary was happening. Every human settlement was making the same decision, but they were also asking the same question: how do we fight back? Dr. Vasquez activated her emergency broadcast system and sent a message to every human scientist, engineer, and researcher in known space. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez calling an emergency meeting of the Human Scientific Council. We have work to do. Within hours, despite the chaos of the alien attack, over 10,000 of humanity's brightest minds had joined the virtual meeting. They came from research stations, universities, corporate labs, and military facilities. Many were calling in while their homes were under attack. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Vasquez began, we are facing extinction, but we are also facing the greatest opportunity in human history. For the first time in 200,000 years, our species has a common enemy. She pulled up a display showing human evolutionary history. Every other species in the galaxy probably evolved on worlds with clear predators and prey. They learned to cooperate because cooperation meant survival, but humans are different. We evolved as both predator and prey. We learned to fight because everything on our world, including other humans, was trying to kill us. The scientists listened intently. Many of them had studied human evolution, but they had never thought about it in military terms. For our entire history, Vasquez continued, we have been fighting wars against enemies who were exactly as smart as us, who had the same technology as us, and who knew all our tricks. We became very, very good at war because we had to be. Any group that wasn't good at fighting got wiped out. Dr. James Morrison, a weapons researcher from the Titan Defense Labs, he spoke up. Are you saying we can actually win this? I'm saying we can make them regret starting it, Vasquez replied. These aliens have technology we can't match, but they've never fought a species like us. They're expecting us to be logical, to calculate the odds, and to surrender when we realize we can't win. But humans don't work that way, added Dr. Sarah Kim, a military psychologist from the Mars War College. When humans are cornered, we don't calculate odds. We go crazy. The meeting continued for 6 hours. By the end, they had created something that had never existed before, a unified human scientific response to an existential threat. They called it the Human Survival Protocol. The plan was simple in concept but terrifying in scope. Since humans couldn't match alien technology, they wouldn't try to. Instead, they would use humanity's greatest advantage, their complete willingness to do whatever it took to survive. Every human facility would be converted to military production. Civilian ships would become weapons. Mining operations would produce explosives. Agricultural stations would develop biological weapons. Children's toys would be turned into bombs. But the real weapon wasn't technology, it was psychology. Dr. Vasquez had analyzed the limited data they had about the aliens and reached a disturbing conclusion. Every alien species they had detected showed signs of having evolved in stable, predictable environments. They had never developed the rapid adaptation mechanisms that came from living in a world where everything was constantly trying to kill you. We're going to use their evolution against them, she explained. They expect rational behavior. They expect us to follow rules. They expect us to value our own lives more than victory. And we're going to do what instead? Asked Dr. Morrison. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten a species that spent 200,000 years perfecting the art of total war. Meanwhile, on colonies across human space, something unprecedented was happening. The fractured, competitive human governments were unifying with a speed that shocked even themselves. The Covenant of Species Survival was signed by every human authority within 12 hours of the first alien attack. President Chen of United Earth, Governor Martinez of Mars, Admiral Kim of the Jupiter Fleet, and leaders from dozens of other factions put aside centuries of differences to sign a document that changed everything. For the first time in human history, the species had a single goal: survival. But the aliens had made one critical error in their planning. They had assumed that threatening humanity with extinction would make humans more careful, more willing to negotiate, more eager to preserve their lives. Instead, they had activated something that had been dormant since humans stopped fighting major wars against each other. They had awakened the part of human nature that viewed extinction-level threats not as a reason to surrender, but as a reason to take everyone else down with them. As the alien fleet prepared for humanity's surrender, humans across the galaxy were preparing for something the aliens had never encountered: a species willing to destroy itself if necessary to destroy its enemies. The war was just beginning, and only one species understood what that really meant. Admiral Corthanis stared at the tactical display with confusion and growing anger. According to his calculations, the human resistance should have collapsed 3 days ago. Instead, it was getting worse. "Report," he growled at his intelligence officer, a tall gray creature with large black eyes. "Sir, the humans have rejected all surrender offers, but that's not the strange part. The strange part is that their resistance is increasing. They started with 200 ships. Now our sensors detect over 1,000. "That's impossible," Corthanis said. "Where did they get more ships?" "They're converting everything, sir. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, even passenger ships. They're strapping weapons to anything that can fly and sending it at our forces." Corthanis looked at the display again. The human ships were pathetic individually. Most would be destroyed by a single shot from his weakest vessels, but they kept coming in waves, and some of them were getting through his defenses. "What about their tactics?" he asked. The intelligence officer hesitated. "Sir, they don't appear to be using tactics in any way we understand. Yesterday, they converted a passenger liner into a giant bomb and rammed it into one of our supply ships. The explosion destroyed both vessels and damaged 2 of our cruisers." "A suicide attack?" Corthanis was puzzled. "Was the crew evacuated first?" "No, sir. The humans flew the ship directly into our formation with the crew still aboard. They all died." This made no sense to Corthanis. In 10,000 years of galactic warfare, no species had ever deliberately sacrificed their own people just to damage the enemy. The mathematics didn't work. Trading 1,000 of your people to kill a few dozen of the enemy was a losing strategy. "Perhaps they made an error," he suggested. "Maybe their evacuation systems failed." "That's what we thought too, sir. But they've done it 17 more times since then." Captain Thren, Corthanis's most experienced officer, spoke up from the tactical station. "Sir, I've been reviewing the combat footage. I don't think the humans are making errors. I think they're doing this on purpose." "Explain." "Each suicide attack has been more sophisticated than the last. They're learning how to maximize damage to our ships, while sacrificing the minimum number of their own vessels. It's not random. It's calculated." Corthanis felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying they're treating their own people as expendable weapons?" "More than that, sir. They're treating their own lives as expendable weapons." On the human colony of New Geneva, Dr. Sarah Kim was putting the finishing touches on humanity's new military doctrine. As a military psychologist, she had studied warfare for decades. But this was different from anything in the textbooks. "The key," she explained to a room full of human military commanders, "is that we're not trying to win a traditional war. We're trying to break their will to fight." General Martinez, the former governor of Mars who had been elected as humanity's supreme military commander, nodded thoughtfully. "Explain the difference." "In a traditional war, you try to destroy the enemy's ability to fight. You target their ships, their bases, their supply lines. But these aliens have too much technology for us to do that effectively." Dr. Kim pulled up a psychological profile of typical galactic species. "But they all share one weakness. They've never fought an enemy that was willing to sacrifice everything for victory. They calculate odds, they minimize losses, they fight logical wars. And humans don't. Humans invented the concept of Pyrrhic victory. We're the only species that has a phrase for winning a battle that costs you more than losing would have. Because sometimes we do that anyway. She switched to a new display showing human military history. Look at Thermopylae. 300 Spartans fighting thousands of Persian troops. They knew they would die, but they fought anyway because their sacrifice would inspire others. Look at the Alamo. A handful of Texans fighting the entire Mexican army. They could have surrendered and lived, but they chose to die fighting because it would send a message. Look at Stalingrad. The Soviet Union lost over 1 million people defending one city. They could have retreated and saved those lives, but they stayed and fought because losing the city would have been worse than losing the people. General Martinez was beginning to understand. You want us to fight like we're already dead? Exactly, because that's how humans fight when everything is at stake. We don't calculate whether we can win. We calculate whether the fight is worth having. Dr. Kim turned to address the entire room. The aliens started this war because they thought we would surrender quickly. They expected us to be logical. They expected us to value our lives more than our freedom. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when you threaten a species that evolved by fighting existential wars against itself for 200,000 years. The new human military doctrine was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of trying to preserve forces and minimize losses, humans would maximize psychological damage to the enemy. Every human death would be designed to terrify and confuse alien forces. Mining colonies would rig their entire asteroids to explode when aliens tried to capture them. Civilian ships would become guided missiles. Captured humans would sabotage alien equipment even if it meant their own death. But the real weapon was biological. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been working around the clock with human scientists across the galaxy. They had managed to capture some alien technology and, more importantly, some alien biological samples. The good news, she reported to General Martinez, is that alien biology is incredibly sophisticated. The bad news is that it's also incredibly specialized. She showed him microscopic images of alien cells. Every species we've analyzed has evolved in a very stable environment. Their immune systems are designed to fight specific threats that exist on their home worlds. Meaning they've never developed resistance to rapid biological adaptation. Their bodies can't handle new diseases or toxins because they've never needed to. Dr. Vasquez pulled up another display showing human immune system responses. Humans, on the other hand, evolved on a world where new diseases appeared constantly. Our immune system is designed to adapt quickly to new threats. But more importantly, our brains are designed to weaponize biology. Humans are the only species that figured out how to use diseases as weapons against their enemies. The biological warfare program was humanity's darkest secret. Working in hidden laboratories across human space, scientists were developing targeted weapons designed to exploit specific weaknesses in alien biology. For the crystalline hegemony, whose silicon-based biology depended on photosynthesis, humans developed a virus that would cause their light absorption cells to consume themselves. For the aquatic depth lords, humans created microscopic organisms that would clog their gill structures, essentially drowning them in their own breathing apparatus. For the energy-based vortex collective, humans designed electromagnetic pulses that would disrupt their coherent energy patterns, causing them to literally fall apart. The beautiful thing, Dr. Vasquez explained with a smile that would have terrified the aliens, is that we're not just making weapons, we're making evolving weapons. Each generation will be more effective than the last. Meanwhile, Admiral Corthanis was discovering that human psychology was even more alien than human biology. "Sir," reported Captain Thren, "the humans have destroyed another one of our supply convoys, but the attack pattern was unusual. Define unusual. They used a civilian passenger ship filled with families, children, elderly, non-combatants. They flew directly at our escort ships and detonated their nuclear reactor." Corthanis stared at his captain in horror. "They killed their own civilians." "That's what we thought too, sir. But we managed to intercept some of their communications." The civilians volunteered. The families requested to be put on that ship. "That's impossible. No rational species would sacrifice non-combatants." "Sir," Thren said quietly, "I don't think the humans are rational. I think there's something else entirely." The captain pulled up a communication intercept. This is what the ship's captain broadcast just before the attack. For our children's children's children. Earth remembers. Humanity endures. Corthanus felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. Fear. Not fear of dying in battle, but fear of something fundamentally wrong with the universe. Get me a communication channel to the Council, he ordered. High priority, maximum encryption. When the channel opened, Council Leader Theron's massive brain form appeared on the screen. Admiral, I trust you have good news about the human pacification. Sir, I'm requesting immediate reinforcements. At least 1,000 additional dreadnoughts. 1,000? Admiral, you're fighting a species with primitive technology and no military experience. Sir, with respect, I don't think these humans have no military experience. I think they have too much military experience. Corthanus took a deep breath. Sir, the humans are fighting like they want to die. Not because they're brave and not because they're stupid. They're fighting like they genuinely believe that dying while killing us is a better outcome than living under our rule. And sir, I'm beginning to think they might be right. Council Leader Theron floated in his chamber, reviewing battle reports that made less sense each day. 6 months had passed since the human war began, and what should have been a simple demonstration of power had become a nightmare that was spreading across Council space. Explain to me again, Theron said to his intelligence chief, how a species with primitive technology has managed to attack 14 of our homeworlds. Zektar the Wise, who no longer felt very wise, manipulated the holographic display with his 4 arms. The humans are using infiltration tactics that we didn't think were possible. They're not relying on advanced technology to sneak onto our worlds. They're using adaptation. Adaptation? Sir, humans can eat almost any organic matter. They can breathe most atmospheric mixtures that don't contain poison. Their internal temperature regulation allows them to survive in a wide range of climates. Most importantly, they're incredibly good at learning to mimic other species' behavior. Theron's tentacles writhed in confusion. Are you telling me they're walking around our homeworlds disguised as us? Not disguised, sir. Adapted. They study our species for a few weeks, then they modify their behavior, their eating habits, even their movement patterns to blend in. Some of them have undergone surgical modifications to better match our appearance. Zektar showed security footage from the crystalline homeworld of Nexus Prime. A figure that looked like a typical crystalline worker was moving through a manufacturing facility, but when the security sensors analyzed the figure more carefully, they detected human bone structure beneath artificial crystal plating. This human spent 3 months learning to move like a crystalline. He ate their food, practiced their gestures, and even learned to think in their mathematical language patterns. By the time he reached the manufacturing plant, he was functionally invisible. What did he do there? He contaminated their entire photosynthetic network with a biological agent that causes their crystal matrices to consume themselves. The entire facility went dark within hours. Theron felt a deep sense of dread. How many of our worlds have been infiltrated? We don't know, sir. We've detected human infiltrators on 14 worlds, but there could be more that we haven't found yet. The humans seem to have an unlimited supply of volunteers for these suicide missions. Suicide missions? Yes, sir. Every human infiltrator we've captured has been carrying biological or chemical weapons that would kill them along with their targets. They don't plan to escape. They plan to do as much damage as possible before they die. On the human research station hidden in the asteroid belt, Dr. Elena Vasquez was coordinating the most ambitious scientific project in human history. Scientists from every human settlement were working together to weaponize everything they had learned about alien biology. Status. Report. She called out to her team. Dr. Morrison looked up from his workstation. The hegemony virus is ready for deployment. We've engineered it to spread through their crystal communication networks. Once it reaches a critical mass, their entire civilization will lose the ability to photosynthesize. The Depth Lord toxin is also complete, reported Dr. Sarah Kim from her biological warfare lab. It's designed to look like their normal food until it reaches their digestive system. Then it releases organisms that will block their gill structures. What about the Vortex collective weapon? Vasquez asked. That's the tricky one, admitted Dr. Chen, a physicist who had been working on energy-based weapons. Since they're pure energy beings, we can't use biological weapons against them. But we've developed an electromagnetic pulse that disrupts their coherence patterns. The problem is delivering it. Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly. I think I have a solution for that. We're going to use the one thing humans are better at than any other species in the galaxy. What's that? Lying. Meanwhile, Captain Thren was dealing with problems that no military academy had ever prepared him for. His crew, veteran warriors who had fought in dozens of campaigns, were starting to break down psychologically. Sir, his medical officer reported, 30% of the crew is showing symptoms of what human military historians would call combat fatigue. But we've only been fighting for 6 months. What's causing it? The humans, sir. They don't fight like any enemy we've ever faced. Yesterday we captured a human transport ship. We expected to find weapons or military supplies. Instead, we found families. Captain Thren waited for the rest of the report, though he dreaded hearing it. The families had rigged the ship to explode if we tried to board it. But not to kill us, sir. To kill themselves. They would rather die than be captured. Did they have military value? Were they carrying strategic intelligence? No, sir. They were refugees from Earth. Elderly people, children, pregnant women. No military value at all. But they chose death rather than surrender. Thren felt sick. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered an enemy that would kill their own non-combatants rather than let them be captured. It violated every rule of civilized warfare. There's more, sir. The children were carrying toys. Toys? Explosive toys, sir. The humans had turned children's playthings into weapons. If we had captured the ship and tried to hold the families, the children's toys would have detonated. Captain Thren realized with growing horror that the humans weren't just fighting a military war. They were fighting a total war, where every human being, regardless of age or combat ability, was considered a weapon. Sir, the medical officer continued, the crew is asking questions that I can't answer. They want to know what kind of species would turn their own children into weapons. They want to know what we're really fighting for. On the council station, an emergency session was being held. Representatives from all 47 member species had gathered to discuss what was being called the human problem. The situation is unacceptable, declared Ambassador Keelan of the Vortex Collective. The humans have somehow managed to disrupt our energy networks on 3 of our worlds. Our people are literally falling apart. The crystalline hegemony has lost 7 manufacturing worlds, added Representative Quex. The humans have developed some kind of virus that destroys our photosynthetic capabilities. Entire populations are going dark. 16 Depth Lord colonies have been contaminated with biological agents, reported Ambassador Tyrix. Our people can't breathe their own water anymore. Council leader Theron listened to the reports with growing alarm. The humans weren't just defending themselves anymore. They were actively destroying Council civilization. How is this possible? He asked Zektar. 6 months ago, you told us the humans were primitive and weak. Zektar's crystal formations were dimming with stress. Sir, I was wrong. I analyzed human technology and human military capabilities, but I didn't analyze human psychology. Explain. Sir, the humans don't fight to win territory or resources or political advantage. They fight to ensure that their enemies can never threaten them again. Ever. Zektar pulled up historical data from Earth. Look at their military history. When humans fought each other, they didn't just defeat their enemies. They destroyed their enemy's ability to ever be a threat again. They called it total war. They applied this concept even to their own species. In their largest war, they didn't just defeat their enemies. They completely restructured their enemies' entire societies to make sure they could never be a threat again. And now they're applying that same strategy to us. The holographic display showed human infiltration, routes spreading across Council space like an infection. They're not trying to defeat our military. They're trying to eliminate our species. Council leader Theron felt something that no council leader had experienced in 10,000 years. Existential fear. What are our options? We have 3 choices, sir. We can escalate the war and try to destroy the humans completely before they destroy us. We can try to negotiate a peace treaty, or we can surrender and hope they show mercy. What do you recommend? Zektar was quiet for a long moment. Sir, I've studied the humans for 6 months now. I've analyzed their history, their psychology, and their current behavior patterns. And, sir, I don't think they understand the concept of mercy. I think they understand only 2 states, threat and non-threat. And once something becomes a threat to human survival, they don't stop fighting until it's no longer capable of being a threat. Ever? Ever, sir. At that moment, Admiral Corthanus' urgent transmission came through. "Council Leader, I need to speak with you immediately. Maximum security." When the connection was established, Corthanus looked exhausted and frightened. "Sir, we've captured a high-ranking human scientist, Dr. James Morrison, one of their weapons researchers. He's agreed to answer questions." "Excellent. What has he told you?" "Sir, he explained their strategy. They call it the Extinction Protocol. They're not trying to defeat the Council. They're trying to make sure the Council can never threaten humanity again." "How?" Admiral Corthanus took a deep breath. "Sir, they're going to kill every intelligent species in the galaxy." Dr. James Morrison sat calmly in the alien interrogation chamber, surrounded by creatures that could have stepped out of humanity's worst nightmares. But he showed no fear. Instead, he seemed almost relaxed, as if he was exactly where he wanted to be. Admiral Corthanus studied the human scientist carefully. Morrison was older than most of the human prisoners they had captured, with gray hair and tired eyes. But those eyes held something that made the Admiral uncomfortable. They held certainty. "Dr. Morrison," Corthanus began, "you are facing execution for war crimes against Council species. However, if you cooperate fully, we may consider more lenient treatment." Morrison smiled, and the expression was somehow more frightening than any human battle cry. "Admiral, I appreciate the offer, but you're not understanding the situation. I'm not here as a prisoner. I'm here as a messenger." "Explain." "The Council made a fundamental error when you started this war. You assumed that because humanity had primitive technology, we were a primitive species. You thought this would be a quick police action to demonstrate your superior force." Morrison leaned forward in his restraints. "But humans aren't just another species, Admiral. We're an extinction-level event that gained intelligence." Corthanus felt that familiar chill running down his spine. "What do you mean?" "Every other species in the galaxy evolved in stable environments with clear predator-prey relationships. You learned cooperation because cooperation led to survival. But Earth was different. On Earth, everything was trying to kill everything else, including different groups of the same species." Morrison's voice remained calm and educational, as if he was giving a lecture. "For 200,000 years, humans survived by being better at total warfare than anything else on our planet. We didn't just fight to win territory or resources. We fought to ensure our enemies could never threaten us again. And now you're applying that strategy to the entire galaxy." "Exactly. You see, Admiral, you made humanity extinct. The moment you fired on our settlements, you destroyed the human species as we existed before. But you created something much worse." Morrison gestured around the interrogation chamber. "You created a species with only one goal: making sure you can never threaten human survival again. Ever." Admiral Corthanus was beginning to understand the true scope of what the Council had unleashed. The infiltrations, the biological weapons, the suicide attacks. You're trying to completely eliminate all Council species. Not just Council species, Admiral. All potentially threatening species in the galaxy. You see, we've learned something important from this war. There are intelligent species out there with technology far superior to ours, and any species with superior technology is a potential threat to human survival. So we're going to remove that potential permanently." The interrogation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Council. Admiral Corthanus accepted the transmission, and Council Leader Theron appeared on the screen. "Admiral, we've made a decision regarding the human situation. We're going to demonstrate that continued resistance is futile." "Sir? We're going to destroy the Sol system. Complete stellar destruction. We'll trigger their star to go supernova. Once the humans see their homeworld destroyed, they'll understand that surrender is their only option." Morrison laughed, and the sound made everyone in the room flinch. "Council Leader, you still don't understand. Humans don't surrender. We escalate." Theron's massive brain form pulsed with anger. "Human, your species will be extinct in 6 hours. Your homeworld will be a cloud of plasma. What possible escalation could you threaten?" Morrison's smile grew wider. "Tell me, Council Leader, have you ever heard of the Samson doctrine?" On the bridge of the TSS Retribution, Admiral Sarah Chen received the Council's ultimatum with the same calm certainty that had characterized human leadership throughout the war. The Retribution was humanity's first purpose-built dreadnought, constructed from salvaged alien technology and powered by pure human determination. "Communications," she ordered. "Open a channel to all Council frequencies. Maximum power, all languages." When the channel opened, Chen stood and addressed the entire galaxy. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, Supreme Commander of Human Forces. You have 6 hours to destroy our home system. We have 5 hours and 59 minutes to destroy yours." She paused to let that sink in. "You should have started with the star." Across human space, ships that the Council had assumed were destroyed or scattered were moving into position. But these weren't the crude converted civilian vessels that had been harassing Council forces for months. These were purpose-built weapons that had been under construction since the war began. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent the last year working on humanity's final project. In hidden shipyards throughout human space, scientists and engineers had been building what they called Genesis bombs, weapons designed not just to destroy worlds, but to make them uninhabitable for thousands of years. "The beautiful thing about human engineering," she explained to her team as they prepared the final weapons, "is that we've always been very good at destroying things completely. Each Genesis bomb was more than just an explosive device. It was a complete ecosystem destruction package, containing specially designed organisms that would consume every trace of technological civilization and render planets uninhabitable for millennia. But the real genius was in the delivery system. The Council's own technology. Dr. Morrison had been telling the truth when he said he was a messenger. During his capture, he had infected himself with a specially designed virus that would spread through alien communication networks. Every time the aliens scanned him, interrogated him, or communicated about him, they spread the virus further through their own systems. The virus wasn't designed to kill. It was designed to broadcast. When Admiral Chen activated the final phase of the Samson doctrine, every alien communication device in the galaxy received the same signal simultaneously. For a brief moment, the entire galactic communication network became a weapon delivery system. 47 Genesis bombs materialized in the heart of every Council homeworld at exactly the same moment. Council Leader. Theron had enough time to realize what was happening before his world began to dissolve around him. "Impossible," he transmitted to Admiral Corthanis. "How did they teleport weapons through our shields?" "They didn't teleport weapons, sir," came Morrison's voice over the communication channel. "They teleported the information needed to build weapons. Your own matter replicators built our bombs using our blueprints. But that would require infiltrating our entire communication network, which we did 6 months ago. Every time you interrogated a human prisoner, every time you scanned our technology, every time you tried to understand how we think, you let us a little further into your systems." Admiral Corthanis understood the final horror. "You wanted to be captured. All of you. Every human prisoner has been a Trojan horse. Now you're beginning to understand how humans fight wars, Admiral. We don't just defeat our enemies, we make our enemies defeat themselves." The Sol System's star exploded in a brilliant flash that could be seen from neighboring galaxies. Earth, Mars, and every human settlement in the system was vaporized instantly. 15 billion humans died in a matter of seconds. But the Council's victory lasted exactly 3 minutes. That's how long it took for the Genesis bombs to reach critical mass on Council homeworlds. Each bomb didn't just destroy a planet. It triggered a cascade reaction that spread through the Council's own trade networks, using their interconnected civilization as a delivery system for total annihilation. Admiral Chen, dying of radiation poisoning aboard the last human ship, managed one final transmission before the Retribution's life support failed. "This message is for anyone listening across the galaxy. We are humans. We evolved by fighting extinction-level threats for 200,000 years. When you threatened us with extinction, you activated something that cannot be reasoned with, negotiated with, or stopped." Her voice was getting weaker, but her words carried across the galaxy on emergency frequencies. "We could have been your allies. We could have been your friends. We could have shared the galaxy in peace, but you chose to threaten our children, and humans will do anything. Sacrifice anything, destroy anything to protect our children. We are dying now, but we are not surrendering. Extinction is not defeat if you take your enemies with you." Chen's final words echoed through empty space as both civilizations burned. Consider this a lesson for anyone else out there. Never start a fight with a species that evolved by fighting itself. We're very, very good at it. The war lasted exactly 1 year, 1 month, and 17 days. When it ended, 48 species had been reduced to scattered survivors hiding in the empty spaces between stars. In the ruins of Council space, Automated beacon systems continued to broadcast warnings to neighboring galaxies. Avoid Sol system descendants. Genocidal capabilities. Do not engage under any circumstances. The warnings specified that humans possess the technological capability and psychological willingness to commit mutual extinction rather than accept subjugation. They also noted that humans viewed such mutual extinction not as a tragic failure, but as an acceptable outcome when fighting for survival. The galaxy fell silent. In the darkness between dead worlds,